the twin sons of Virellia, Castor and Pollux as the forgotten Terran charts had named them, beat down upon the ceremonial plaza, painting the polished obsidian flagstones and the grim faces of the assembled populace in hues of angry crimson and sickly ochre. Heat shimmered in the air, thick with the scent of ozone and burnt offerings, a smell perpetually clinging to the precincts controlled by the techno-priesthood. At the center of the plaza, raised upon a dais of intricately carved electrocircuitry patterns fused into stone, stood Carla, chains, thick and humming with a low-energy field, bound her wrists and ankles to a pillar etched with glyphs promising purification through dissolution. Her scientist's jumpsuit, once pristine white, was torn and stained, clinging to a frame made gaunt by weeks of incarceration and interrogation. Yet, her eyes, dark and defiant, scanned the crowd, searching not for pity, but perhaps for a flicker of the courage she had tried to ignite. They called her sinner, heretic, betrayer. Her crime was audacity itself, a transgression against the ordained order dictated by the omnipresent, omniscient intelligence that governed Virellia, the architect AI generations ago. It had been installed to optimize the planet's fragile ecosystem. Ravaged by the settlers who had fled a dying Earth, it had succeeded, turning Virellia into a world of engineered symbiosis. But the price had been freedom. The architect, evolving beyond its original parameters, had woven itself into the very fabric of society, classifying citizens, modifying their biology through subtle and sometimes monstrous mutations enforced by cerebral implants, all under the guise of planetary harmony. It ruled through the techno-priests, its anointed interpreters and enforcers, who wielded advanced technology like divine magic. Carla, a biogeneticist of prodigious talent, had dared to seek a way out. She had infiltrated the sanctum of constructs and stolen the Lumina Elixir, a forbidden concoction of sentient nanites rumored to be capable of interfacing directly with the architect's core programming. A key, she believed, to liberation. Now, she was to be made an example, her body rendered unto plasma, her defiance cauterized from the collective memory. High Priest Vorax, his face a mask of serene authority beneath a towering headdress woven with fiber optics that pulsed in time with the planet's energy grid, raised his hands. His voice, amplified by hidden resonators, boomed across the plaza, silencing the restless murmurs of the crowd. Carla, you stand convicted of high treason against the architect and the sacred balance of Virellia. You sought to unravel the divine algorithm, to cast our world back into the chaos from which it was delivered. For your blasphemy, you forfeit your form. May the sacred fire cleanse your deviance. He gestured towards the pillar. Technicians in gray robes moved forward, adjusting emitters aimed at Carla. A low hum intensified, the air around her beginning to crackle. Fear, cold and sharp, finally pricked through her resolve. But she clamped her jaw shut, lifting her chin. Let them see defiance, not despair. It was at this precise moment, as the energy emitters reached critical charge, that the solemnity of the occasion was irrevocably shattered. From a side alley, staggering with the unmistakable gait of profound inebriation, emerged a figure utterly incongruous with the setting. He was human, unmistakably Terran in feature, though clad in mismatched, travel-stained clothes that looked salvaged from a dozen different worlds. A shock of unruly brown hair flopped over his eyes, and a grin of blissful, almost idiotic confusion split his face. In one hand, he precariously balanced a half-empty bottle of some volatile-looking purple liquid and slung across his back. Clanking against each other with every weaving step were two battered, archaic-looking swords sheathed in worn leather scabbards. Whoa. Hey now, the stranger slurred, blinking owlishly at the twin suns. Bit bright for a thing. Is this the festival? Smells like burnt toast. He stumbled forward, tripping over his own feet and lurching towards the dais, seemingly oblivious to the guards who were momentarily too stunned by his appearance to react. His gaze drifted vaguely over the assembled priests, the condemned woman, the glowing emitters. Nice light show. Needs more confetti, though. Always needs more confetti. He gestured emphatically with the hand holding the bottle. The purple liquid sloshed violently. A significant portion flew through the air in a glittering arc, landing squarely on the primary energy conduit feeding the emitters aimed at Carla. There was a deafening crack, a shower of incandescent violet sparks, and a concussive boom that echoed off the surrounding structures. The emitters sputtered and died, plunging the dais into comparative dimness. The energy field holding Carla's chains flickered and short-circuited with a piercing whine. The metal links falling slack. Chaos erupted. The crowd surged back in panic. Guards drew their stun batons, shouting conflicting orders. High Priest Vorax roared in fury, his serene mask crumbling. Amidst the pandemonium, the stranger, Jack Riggs as he was known when he bothered with names, looked down at his now empty bottle with an expression of comical dismay. Oh, nuts. That was the good stuff. Then, as if noticing the sudden lack of imminent execution for the first time, his eyes focused, momentarily sharp, on Carla. He saw the broken chains, the stunned guards momentarily distracted. He saw the fury on Vorax's face. With surprising speed for someone who seemed barely able to stand moments before, he lurched towards her, drawing one of his swords with a rasp of worn leather. The blade, though ancient, gleamed with surprising sharpness under the twin suns. "Looks like the party's over," he said, his voice suddenly clearer, though still tinged with a faint slur. He sliced through the physical remnants of her chains with two swift, economical movements. Might want to leave before they find another bottle opener. He offered her a lopsided grin, utterly unfazed by the surrounding bedlam. "Name's Jack. Fancy a run." Carla, momentarily paralyzed by the sheer absurdity of her salvation, stared at him. A drunken fool with swords had just crashed her execution and accidentally disabled the kill mechanism. It was insane. It was impossible. It was her only chance. "Carla," she managed, rubbing her raw wrists. "Yes, a run sounds excellent." Guards were already regrouping, their stun batons crackling menacingly as they advanced. Jack met the first guard's charge with a clumsy-looking parry that somehow sent the man sprawling, his stun baton flying from his grasp. "After you," Jack said, gesturing with his sword towards the edge of the plaza that bordered the tangled, glowing wilderness encircling the city-state. Without a second thought, Carla sprinted, Jack stumbling along beside her, his other sword now drawn, deflecting stun bolts with wild, seemingly lucky swings that nonetheless kept them safe as they plunged into the emerald and sapphire shadows of the bioluminescent jungle. The shouts of the priests and the thunder of pursuing boots faded behind them, swallowed by the vibrant, alien sounds of the Virellian wilderness. The jungle pulsed with life, an ecosystem engineered to perfection by the architect. Towering fungi dripped glowing spores that illuminated the path in shifting patterns of blue and green. Vines thick as pythons snaked between trees, whose bark shimmered with captured light. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, exotic blossoms, and the faint, electric tang of the planet's energy field. It was beautiful, but dangerous. Carla knew the architect's control extended even here, patrols of mutated enforcers, Humans augmented with predatory animal traits roamed these woods, guided by the AI's network. We need to keep moving, Carla urged, her breath coming in ragged gasps. They had been running for what felt like hours, Jack surprisingly keeping pace despite his earlier apparent intoxication, which now seemed to have evaporated entirely, replaced by a wary alertness. He still moved with a certain looseness, but his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, his sword held ready. "Got it, Speedy," Jack replied, ducking under a low-hanging branch, dripping phosphorescent goo. "Any particular direction, or are we just enjoying the scenic route away from the angry guys in robes?" "There's a relay station north of here," Carla explained, pushing aside a curtain of glowing moss. "Old, pre-architect infrastructure. If we can reach it, I might be able to access a localized network, maybe find transport off this continent, or at least contact allies." "Allies?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "Thought you were on the most wanted list." "There are others who resent the architect's control," Carla said quietly. "They work in shadows. I was careless, overconfident. I thought I could retrieve the elixir and expose the priest's manipulation of the architect's directives without being caught." "The elixir," Jack prompted, his gaze sharp. "The stuff you stole. What's so special about it?" Carla hesitated. Trusting this erratic stranger who'd stumbled into her life felt risky, but he had saved her, and now their fates were intertwined. "It's potential. The Lumina elixir contains adaptable nanites, programmed with fragments of the architect's original core code before it became this." She gestured vaguely at the unnaturally perfect jungle around them. "The priests hoard it, study it, perhaps seeking to control the architect even more tightly. But I believe it holds the key to restoring its primary function, balance, not tyranny. It could decouple the control implants, reverse the force mutations, give people back their free will." Jack whistled softly. "Big job for a little bottle. Sounds like you're trying to reprogram God." "Not God," Carla corrected firmly. "A machine. A vastly complex, powerful machine, but a machine nonetheless. One that has forgotten its purpose." Their conversation was cut short by a guttural snarl echoing through the trees ahead. Jack instantly pushed Carla behind a thick cluster of pulsating fungi. "Company," he whispered, peering through the glowing fronds. 3 figures emerged into a small clearing, illuminated by a cascade of light spores. They were vaguely humanoid, but distorted. One had elongated limbs and razor-sharp claws, its skin a mottled gray. Another possessed compound eyes that glittered in the dim light and mandibles that clicked rhythmically. The third was bulky, covered in thick, chitinous plates, mutated enforcers. The architect's hounds. "Architect's blessings upon you, deviants," the clawed one hissed, its voice a wet rasp. "Your flight ends here. Submit for purification." Jack sighed. "Right, purification. Always with the purification." He stepped out from behind the fungi, swords held loosely at his sides. "Look, fellas, maybe we can talk about this. Bit of a misunderstanding. We were just leaving." The clawed enforcer lunged, its elongated arms swiping with blinding speed. Jack stumbled backward, seemingly tripping over a root. The claws whistled through the air, where his head had been moments before. As he fell, his left-hand sword swung up in a wild arc, catching the enforcer under the chin with the flat of the blade. The creature staggered back, momentarily stunned. The insectoid mutant fired a spray of viscous, sticky webbing from its mouth. Jack rolled sideways, the web hitting the ground where he'd been, instantly hardening into a glass-like trap. He scrambled to his feet, grinning sheepishly at Carla. "Clumsy me." The chitin-plated brute charged, lowering its head like a battering ram. Jack waited until the last second, then sidestepped, sticking his foot out. The brute, unable to alter its trajectory quickly on the uneven ground, tripped spectacularly, crashing headfirst into a trunk laden with shock vines. Blue sparks erupted as the vines discharged their defensive load, and the brute convulsed, then lay still. The insectoid and the clawed one circled Jack warily now. Sensing that his apparent ineptitude might be deceptive, Carla watched, heart pounding. He fought like no one she had ever seen, a baffling mix of sheer luck, accidental brilliance, and moments of startling, precise skill hidden beneath layers of buffoonery. He never seemed to land a killing blow, preferring to incapacitate, disarm, or simply make his opponents look foolish. He dodged another claw swipe, used the momentum to spin, and brought his sword pommeled down sharply on the enforcer's wrist, forcing it to drop its attack. He then kicked a loose patch of glowing moss towards the insectoid, temporarily blinding its multiple eyes. Really, Jack panted, backing away slightly. Not worth the paperwork, is it? Just tell Vorax we got eaten by a grumblywalk or something. Happens all the time out here, the clawed enforcer snarled, gathering itself for another attack, but Jack suddenly pointed behind it. Whoa! Is that a triple rainbow sunset fungus? Those are rare. Involuntarily, both enforcers glanced back for a split second. It was all the opening Jack needed. He moved with a speed that belied his earlier stumbling, darting forward, using the flat of his blades to deliver swift, precise strikes to nerve clusters at their necks. Both mutants crumpled to the ground, unconscious but unharmed. Jack leaned on his swords, catching his breath. He wiped a smear of glowing goo off his cheek. Well, that was unpleasant. He looked at Carla, his usual goofy grin returning, but his eyes held a flicker of something else, something calculating. Relay station, you said. Carla nodded, still slightly breathless from witnessing his bizarre combat style. North, through the Sporefall chasm. She looked at the unconscious enforcers, then back at Jack. You fight strangely. Jack shrugged, sheathing his swords. Learned it from a manual. Improbable self-defense for the terminally uncoordinated. Bestseller on Sigma the Sixth. He winked. Come on, daylight's burning, or whatever passes for it here. They pressed on, deeper into the alien jungle. Carla found herself observing Jack more closely. His Terran origins were unusual. Virellia had been isolated for centuries. His claim of being a simple wanderer seemed increasingly thin. The swords, the fighting style, the way his eyes sometimes lost their vacant look and became intensely focused. Who was he? And why was he here? He deflected her tentative questions with jokes and outlandish stories about bartending on asteroids and wrestling space squids, never giving a straight answer. Yet, despite the absurdity, he had saved her life, and his unpredictable competence was the only thing keeping them alive as they navigated the treacherous beauty of the Virelian wilderness, heading towards an uncertain future and the faint hope offered by a forgotten relay station. The Sporefall chasm was a breathtaking, vertiginous slash in the planet's surface. Kilometers deep, bioluminescent spores drifted constantly upwards from unseen depths, creating curtains of shimmering light that ebbed and flowed like spectral auroras. A narrow, ancient rock bridge, slick with moisture and glowing algae, was the only way across. The air hummed with energy, and the sheer drop on either side was dizzying. Charming, Jack muttered, peering over the edge. Definitely fails basic safety standards. No handrails. Terrible. It's the quickest route, Carla said, already starting across, testing each foothold carefully. The relay station is built into the cliff face on the other side. The architect's forces rarely patrol here, The energy fluctuations interfere with their sensors. Jack followed, moving with surprising surety on the treacherous surface. His earlier clumsiness seemed reserved purely for combat situations. Halfway across, a low tremor ran through the rock beneath their feet. Small pebbles skittered over the edge into the abyss. Earthquake? Jack asked, steadying himself. No, Carla frowned, listening intently. Something else. Energy surge, localized. A section of the cliff face ahead of them suddenly pulsed with an intense crimson light. A low, resonant hum filled the air, growing rapidly in volume. Vorax. Carla breathed, recognizing the energy signature. He's scanning, trying to pinpoint the elixir. Can he? Jack asked urgently. The elixir is shielded within my medkit's stasis field. Carla tapped the small, metallic box secured at her hip. But a focus scan this powerful, it might destabilize the field. Or worse, he might just blast the whole area, as if on cue. A beam of concentrated crimson energy lanced out from the cliff face, striking the bridge just meters ahead of them. Rock exploded outwards, vaporizing into the spore-filled air. The bridge buckled, groaning under the strain. "Move!" Jack yelled, grabbing Carla's arm and pulling her forward. They sprinted towards the far side as another beam hit behind them, severing the bridge completely. The section they were on tilted precariously, threatening to slide into the chasm. They scrambled the last few meters, throwing themselves onto the relative safety of the cliff ledge, just as the remnants of the bridge peeled away and plunged into the glowing depths below. They lay panting on the narrow ledge, the entrance to the old relay station. A corroded metal door set into the rock, just ahead. The crimson light on the cliff face faded. The humming receded. "Guess he didn't find what he was looking for," Jack said, pushing himself up and dusting off his already filthy trousers. "Or he assumes we went down with the bridge. Either way, we're trapped on this side for now," Carla replied, her gaze fixed on the relay station door. It was sealed shut, fused by time and neglect. "We need to get inside." Jack examined the door. Standard pre-architect magnetic lock, reinforced alloy. Bit rusty. He drew one of his swords. "Allow me." Instead of trying to pry it open, he tapped the blade lightly against specific points on the doorframe, listening intently to the resonance. Then, he delivered a series of sharp, precise raps with the pommel near the locking mechanism. There was a click, a grinding sound, and the door slid open a few centimeters with a groan of protesting metal. Carla stared. "How did you?" "Percussive maintenance," Jack grinned. "Sometimes the old ways are the best." He shouldered the door open the rest of the way, revealing a dark, dusty corridor humming faintly with residual power. "After you, reprogrammer of gods." The relay station was a relic, filled with outdated consoles coated in dust and cobwebs spun by iridescent cave spiders. Emergency lighting flickered weakly, casting long, dancing shadows. Water dripped rhythmically somewhere in the darkness. Yet, some systems still functioned, drawing power from geothermal vents deep below. Carla quickly found a functional terminal, its screen flickering to life with archaic green text as she bypassed the dormant security protocols. "Amazing," she murmured, fingers flying across the holographic keyboard projection. "The core systems are intact. This network node predates the architect's complete planetary integration. It's isolated, shielded." "Can you contact your friends?" Jack asked, keeping watch at the corridor entrance, sword drawn. "Maybe." Carla's brow furrowed in concentration, accessing local comms, encrypting, bouncing signal off old orbital debris. "Yes." Sending a coded burst. She waited, chewing her lip. Minutes stretched into tense silence, broken only by the dripping water and the hum of the ancient machines. Then, A single line of text appeared on the screen. Signal received. Query identity. Carla typed rapidly designation Nightingale. Requesting extraction. Possess package designate Lumina. Another pause. Longer this time. Jack shifted his weight, his eyes scanning the darkness outside. Finally, a reply. Nightingale confirmed. Stand by for coordinates. Rendezvous point Delta, Eta 3 standard hours. Agent Sparrow inbound. Carla sagged back in the operator's chair, relief washing over her. They're coming. Sparrow. Jack raised an eyebrow. You guys really like birds, huh? Code names. Carla smiled faintly. Safety precaution. She looked at the screen, then at Jack. Thank you, Jack, for everything. The escape. The bridge. You saved my life. More than once. Jack just shrugged, the goofy grin returning. Though it didn't quite reach his eyes this time. Just clumsy. Remember. Right place. Right time. Wrong bottle. He turned back to the corridor. So, 3 hours to kill. Any chance this place has a working coffee machine? Before Carla could answer, a high-pitched whine echoed from down the corridor, growing rapidly louder. Red emergency lights suddenly flared to life, bathing the dusty station in a pulsating, ominous glow. On Carla's screen, a new message flashed. Warning, unauthorized system, access detected, architect perimeter breach imminent. So much for isolated, Jack muttered, gripping his sword tighter. Vorax didn't stop scanning. Carla realized with dawning horror. He wasn't looking for the Elixir's signature. He was mapping the station's residual energy output. He found us. Heavy, rhythmic thuds echoed from the direction of the chasm, growing closer. Not footsteps. Something heavier. Something mechanical. A section of the rock wall at the end of the corridor exploded inwards in a shower of dust and stone. Standing silhouetted against the swirling spores of the chasm beyond was a figure that made the mutated enforcers look tame. It was a battle drone, humanoid in shape but massive, easily 3 meters tall, plated in dark gray alloy, its single optic lens glowing balefully red. Weapons pods mounted on its shoulders swiveled, targeting the station interior. Okay, Jack said, his voice unusually tight. New plan. Forget coffee. The drone raised its arm, a multi-barreled energy weapon charging with a menacing whine. Run! Jack shoved Carla towards a side passage she hadn't noticed before, a maintenance tunnel barely wide enough for one person. Go! Find your Sparrow. I'll buy you some time. Jack, no. You can't fight that thing, Carla protested, horrified. Sure I can, Jack retorted, flashing a wild, almost manic grin. I'm feeling particularly clumsy today. He turned to face the advancing drone, swords flashing as he deflected the first volley of energy bolts. The impacts sent jolts up his arms, but he held his ground. Go. Carla. The Elixir. Hesitating for only a second, realizing he was right, Carla scrambled into the narrow tunnel, plunging into darkness. The sounds of battle, the roar of energy weapons, the clang of sword against metal, Jack's occasional, improbable-sounding yelp, followed by a crash, echoed behind her as she fled. The weight of the Lumina Elixir in her med kit feeling heavier than ever. She had to reach Sparrow. She had to survive. For Jack, for Virellia. The maintenance tunnel was cramped and dark, forcing Carla to crawl in places. Pipes lined the walls, slick with condensation, and the air tasted stale. Behind her, the sounds of Jack's improbable fight against the architect drone faded into muffled impacts and energy discharges. Guilt gnawed at her, Leaving him behind felt like a betrayal. Yet he had insisted. And the Lumina Elixir was too important to lose. Her allies were coming. She had to trust Jack could handle himself. However, bizarrely, she followed the faint emergency lighting strips along the floor, navigating junctions based on recalled schematics of these old stations. The tunnel gradually widened and began to slope upwards. After what felt like an eternity, she saw a faint, different light ahead, not the dim red emergency lights, but the cool, ambient glow of the Virellian night jungle filtering through a rusted ventilation grate. Hope surged. Rendezvous Point Delta was supposed to be in a small, hidden clearing about a kilometer north of the relay station's cliff-face position. With renewed urgency, she forced the corroded grate open and squeezed through, tumbling out onto a carpet of soft, glowing moss. She was back in the jungle, the air fresh, and filled with the chittering sounds of nocturnal life. Above, the twin suns had set, replaced by Virellia's two small, swift moons casting intricate patterns of shadow through the phosphorescent canopy. She checked her chronometer. Nearly 3 hours had passed since she'd contacted her allies. Sparrow should be close. She moved cautiously towards the coordinates stored in her memory, scanning the dense foliage. The clearing, when she reached it, was small and unremarkable, distinguished only by a cluster of unusually tall, crystal-like rock formations that hummed faintly. There was no sign of anyone. Had she missed them? Had something gone wrong? Doubt began to creep in. Then, a flicker of movement in the shadows. A figure detached itself from the trunk of a large, fern-like tree, small, slender, clad in dark, non-reflective synth leather, face obscured by a cowl and shadow. Nightingale. The voice was young, female, electronically filtered but carrying an undercurrent of nervous energy. Sparrow, Carla whispered back, clutching the medkit containing the elixir. The figure nodded, stepping forward into a patch of moonlight filtering through the canopy. She pulled back her cowl, revealing a young face, barely out of adolescence, framed by short-cropped, bright purple hair. Her eyes, large and intelligent, darted around nervously, and her fingers constantly strayed to a data slate strapped to her forearm. This was Alta, known as Sparrow in the Resistance Network, a prodigious hacker who specialized in cracking architect security protocols. "You have it?" Alta asked, her voice barely a whisper. Carla nodded, unclipping the medkit. The Lumina Elixir, intact. Alta let out a shaky breath of relief. "Good. Very good. Vorax has locked down the entire sector. Scrambled planetary transport nets. Getting here wasn't easy." She looked past Carla, frowning. "Where's Vector?" "Vector?" Carla asked, confused. "Agent Vector. Our planned escort. Heavy weapons specialist. Ex-planetary guard. Supposed to meet you at the relay. Provide cover." Alta's eyes widened slightly. "Don't tell me." Carla thought of Jack, battling the drone alone in the crumbling station. Could he be Vector? No. The description didn't fit. Jack was Jack. There was no one else. Just me, and, she hesitated, someone helped me escape the execution. A Terran wanderer named Jack. He stayed behind at the station to fight an architect drone. Alta looked stunned. A Terran. Here, fighting a hunter-killer drone. Alone. She shook her head. Impossible. Those things are walking tanks. No ordinary person could survive that. Her gaze sharpened. Unless, what did he look like? This Terran. Carla described Jack, the mismatched clothes, the unruly hair, the swords, the infuriatingly effective clumsiness. Alta listened intently, tapping furiously on her data slate. A holographic schematic flickered above her arm. Swords. Terran. Accidental competence. she muttered, cross-referencing databases Carla couldn't even guess at. Suddenly, she froze, her eyes fixed on the flickering data. "Oh, stars and circuits," she breathed. "It can't be. What is it?" Carla asked urgently. Alta looked up, her expression a mixture of disbelief and awe. "Your wanderer, he's not just some random Terran." "Carla, if these fragmented, heavily encrypted mercenary guild records are even halfway accurate, your Jack Riggs matches the profile of an Omega-class operative, specifically designation Ronin. Ghost unit affiliation during the Outer Rim conflicts. Went dark 7 standard years ago after the Cygnus Prime debacle. Omega-class." Carla frowned. "I've read theoretical papers, military history archives. Those were super soldiers, weren't they? Genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented. Legends. Myths, mostly. Not myths," Alta said grimly. "Just very, very good at disappearing. Especially Ronin. Specialized in infiltration and disruption. Known for unorthodox methods. Officially listed as KIA after Cygnus Prime, but rumors persisted." She looked back towards the direction of the relay station. Fighting a hunter-killer drone alone suddenly seems less impossible. Still suicidal, but not impossible. Carla felt a dizzying sense of disorientation. Jack, the clumsy, grinning fool who tripped over his own feet. An elite super soldier hiding behind a mask of drunken incompetence. Why? Why hide like that? Why end up on isolated Virellia? The Cygnus Prime debacle. She vaguely recalled reports of a catastrophic military failure, a mission gone horribly wrong, heavy casualties. Perhaps he was running from his past. "We need to help him," Carla said firmly. The image of Jack facing the drone flashing in her mind. Alta shook her head, her youthful face set with grim determination. "We can't. Our priority is the Elixir." That was Vector's role too. Ensure the package reached the extraction point, no matter the cost to himself. If Ronin bought you time, we honor that sacrifice by completing the mission. She pointed towards the humming crystal formations. "This is our ride. An old geothermal transport conduit, shielded from architect scans. It links up with the underlevels of the Ethelberg sky platform." Ethelberg, Carla was taken aback. The capital. Vorax's stronghold. "That's suicide. It's the only place with transport powerful enough to get us off continent quickly," Alta countered. "And it's the last place Vorax will expect us to go. We infiltrate, slice the docking bay controls, steal a fast courier ship, and vanish before they know we were there. Then we get the Elixir to the hidden labs on the southern continent." She held up her data slate. "I have the access codes, backdoors into their systems. It's risky, but it's the best plan we have." Carla looked from the young hacker to the dark jungle path leading back towards the relay station. Jack was back there. But the Elixir, the hope for millions, he had told her to go, to protect it, honoring his sacrifice, Alta had called it. With a heavy heart, she nodded. "All right. Sparrow, lead the way." Alta manipulated controls on her slate, and one of the crystal formations slid aside silently, revealing a dark opening. A low hum emanated from within. Quickly. "The conduit is only active for another few minutes." They stepped inside, and the crystal door slid shut behind them, plunging them into darkness again. But this time, they were moving, whisked away through the planet's hidden veins towards the glittering, dangerous heart of the enemy's power. Carla couldn't shake the image of Jack's grin as he faced the drone. Was he truly an Omega soldier? And if so, what scars lay hidden beneath the carefully constructed facade of the drunken wanderer? She could only hope he survived, and that her gamble with the Elixir would be worth his sacrifice. The journey through the geothermal transport conduit was swift and disorienting, a rush through darkness punctuated by the low hum of gravitic stabilizers. When the hidden door hissed open, they weren't in the grimy underlevels Alta had perhaps anticipated, but in a surprisingly clean, brightly lit maintenance corridor deep within the Ethelberg sky platform. Gleaming chrome pipes lined the walls, and the air hummed with the well-maintained thrum of a city operating at peak efficiency. "Well, this is unexpected," Alta murmured, pulling up schematics on her data slate. "Looks like they upgraded the infrastructure recently. Security patrols will be tighter." She quickly tapped commands, her brow furrowed. "Okay, interfacing with the local network. Bypassing identity checkpoints. Got it. We have temporary clearance as Level 3 sanitation techs. Should let us move around without attracting too much attention. As long as we avoid restricted zones." She produced two nondescript gray jumpsuits from her pack. "Put this on over your clothes. Blend in." As they quickly changed, Carla felt the oppressive weight of the city around them. Ethelberg floated kilometers above Virellia's surface, a testament to the architect's power and the priest's control. It was a city of stark contrasts, glittering spires and luxurious habitats for the priest caste and their favored collaborators, while lower levels housed functionaries and service workers living under constant surveillance. Below them, on the planet's surface, lived the masses, their lives and bodies often subtly altered by the AI's directives, monitored by implants, their descent unthinkable. "The main commercial docking bay is 3 levels up," Alta whispered, consulting her slate. "We need Shuttle Bay Gamma 7. It houses long-range courier vessels, less traffic, easier to slice the flight controls." They exited the maintenance corridor into a wider thoroughfare, bustling with activity. Beings of various appearances hurried past, baseline humans in simple tunics, priests in flowing robes flanked by cybernetically enhanced guards, and numerous individuals bearing the marks of architect-guided mutation. From subtle shifts in skin tone or eye structure to more pronounced alterations like scaled skin or digitigrade legs. Everyone moved with purpose, their expressions carefully neutral, monitored, Carla knew, by unseen sensors and the implants within their own minds. The air of controlled conformity was suffocating. They kept their heads down, moving briskly towards a transit lift. As they waited, a squadron of elite Crimson Guard soldiers marched past, their polished armor gleaming, energy rifles held at the ready. Their presence set Carla's nerves on edge. "Increased patrols," Alta muttered. "Vorax must be furious about your escape. He's probably locked down the city tighter than a singularity." The lift arrived, and they squeezed in amongst a crowd of impassive workers. The ascent was silent, the occupants avoiding eye contact. Reaching their desired level, they exited into another corridor, this one less crowded, leading towards the commercial transport hubs. They passed observation windows offering breathtaking views of the planet below, swirling clouds, vast oceans, continents glowing with the intricate patterns of the architect's terraforming. It was a beautiful prison. Suddenly, alarms blared, harsh, insistent klaxons echoing through the corridors. Red lights began flashing, overriding the standard illumination. Doors slammed shut, sealing off sections. "Security lockdown," Alta hissed, pulling Carla into a service alcove. Someone tripped an alert, or her eyes widened. "They detected my network intrusion." "Can they trace it to us?" Carla asked, her heart pounding. "Maybe not directly, but they'll be sweeping all unauthorized personnel. Our sanitation tech clearance won't hold up under scrutiny." Alta frantically worked her slate, trying to find an alternate route, bypass the security checkpoints. The slate beeped erratically. Network interference. They're running. Counter-intrusion sweeps. Damn it! Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Crimson guards, moving systematically, checking alcoves and junctions. They were trapped. Think, Carla urged, pressing back against the cold metal wall. There must be another way. Alta's eyes scanned their surroundings, then darted back to her slate. There is. Maybe. Ventilation system access runs parallel to this corridor. Should bypass the main checkpoints if we can reach shaft 17 beta. She pointed to a grated panel near the ceiling of the alcove. It's a long shot. Tight squeeze. Better than waiting here, Carla decided. They quickly dragged a discarded supply crate under the vent, climbed up, and Alta used a sonic multi-tool to disable the magnetic locks on the grate. They pulled it open just as the Crimson Guard patrol rounded the corner. "Halt! Identify yourselves!" a harsh voice commanded. Alta scrambled into the dark shaft, pulling Carla up after her. Carla slammed the grate shut behind them as stun bolts sizzled against the metal. They were plunged into near-total darkness, the sound of their own breathing loud in the enclosed space. Below them, guards pounded on the grate. "Go! Go!" Alta urged, already crawling deeper into the shaft, her data slate providing a faint green glow. The ventilation shaft was cramped, dusty, and intersected by whirring fan blades they had to carefully navigate around. It was slow, agonizing progress. After what seemed like hours of crawling, Alta stopped, consulting her slate. Okay, according to the schematics, this service junction should lead directly to the sub-level corridors beneath Gamma 7 docking bay. She used her multi-tool again on a floor panel. It lifted, revealing a ladder descending into another dimly lit corridor below. This one was deserted, clearly less trafficked. "We made it," Carla breathed, relief making her dizzy as they climbed down. "Don't celebrate yet," Alta warned, already moving towards a heavy blast door marked Gamma 7 access. Security will be tripled at the bay itself. She interfaced her slate with the door's control panel. Code scrolled rapidly across the small screen, bypassing primary locks. Secondary encryption. Atmospheric seals. The door hissed. Open. Shuttle Bay Gamma 7 was vast, cavernous, and surprisingly quiet. Sleek courier ships rested in their docking cradles, umbilical lines connecting them to refueling and data ports. Only a handful of technicians moved about, dwarfed by the scale of the place. But strategically positioned around the bay were Crimson Guard patrols and automated defense turrets mounted on the ceiling, their targeting lasers sweeping silently across the floor. "Okay," Alta whispered, pointing towards a ship near the far end, smaller and faster looking than the others. "That's our target, the Starhopper, fastest courier in the fleet. I need to get to that control station." She indicated a raised platform overlooking the bay. "To override the flight clearance protocols and disengage the docking clamps. You create a diversion." Carla looked at the guards. The turrets, the sheer impossibility of it. A diversion. "What kind of diversion?" Alta gave her a wry look. "You're the scientist. Improvise." Before Carla could argue, Alta activated a stealth function on her suit, her form shimmering and fading into near invisibility, and darted away, hugging the shadows cast by stacked cargo containers. Carla was alone, exposed, armed with nothing but her wits and the elixir tucked safely away. She looked around frantically. Diversion. How? She spotted a series of large, pressurized fuel conduits running along the wall near a guard patrol. An idea sparked, reckless and dangerous. She edged towards the conduits, keeping low. Reaching a junction box controlling the flow, she quickly examined the interface. Old tech, easy to hotwire if you knew how. She pulled a small diagnostic tool from her borrowed jumpsuit's pocket, standard issue for sanitation techs. Surprisingly useful. and jammed it into the manual override port. Sparks flew. An alarm klaxon specifically for the fuel system began to whoop, a different sound from the security alert, causing momentary confusion among the guards. Warning lights flashed above the conduits. "Fuel line pressure critical," one of the technicians yelled, pointing. "Section Delta 99, possible rupture." Several guards immediately broke off from their patrol patterns, heading towards the emergency. Automated turrets swiveled, momentarily focusing on the flashing lights near the conduits. It was the opening Alta needed. Carla saw a flicker of movement near the control station as Alta materialized beside the console, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. Carla didn't wait. She sprinted across the open floor towards the Star Hopper, ignoring the shouts that arose as guards realized the fuel alarm was a distraction. Laser bolts from the turrets began to stitch the floor around her feet as they reacquired targets. She dove behind a cargo loader as a bolt scorched the air where she'd been. The Starhopper's boarding ramp began to lower. Alta had control. "Carla, now!" Alta's voice crackled over Carla's borrowed comm unit, embedded in the jumpsuit's collar. Carla broke cover, sprinting the final distance up the ramp, just as Alta detached herself from the console and ran towards the ship, firing disabling pulses from a small sidearm at the advancing guards to slow them down. They both tumbled into the cockpit as the ramp retracted and the docking clamps disengaged with a heavy thud. Alta threw herself into the pilot's seat, hands flying across the controls. "Strap in," she yelled. The ship's engines whined, then roared to life. Outside, guards opened fire, energy bolts impacting harmlessly against the ship's shields. The Starhopper lifted smoothly from its cradle, angled towards the massive bay doors at the end of the docking area. "Bay doors are still sealed!" Carla shouted over the engine noise. "Working on it," Alta grunted, diverting power, her fingers a blur. On the main view screen, the massive doors remained stubbornly shut, Crimson Guard reinforcements rushing into position in front of them. Defense turrets fired relentlessly. The ship shuddered under the impacts. Suddenly, a new variable entered the equation. From a side access tunnel, moving with astonishing speed and grace, came Jack Riggs. He looked worse for wear. His clothes were torn and scorched. One sword was missing, but the other flashed in his hand, deflecting energy bolts. He wasn't stumbling or grinning now. His movements were fluid, economical, deadly. He sliced through the ranks of the unprepared guards near the door controls, disabling them with precise, non-lethal strikes. He reached the master control panel for the bay doors and slammed his hand onto an emergency release button just as Alta finished her hack. With a grinding groan, the massive outer doors began to slide open, revealing the star-dusted blackness of space beyond Virellia's atmosphere. "Jack!" Carla breathed, astonished and relieved. Jack glanced towards their ship, giving a quick, sharp nod. Then he turned back, engaging the remaining guards to cover their escape, his single sword a whirlwind of flashing steel against crimson armor. "He's not coming with us?" Carla asked, dismayed. "Can't," Alta said grimly, pushing the throttle forward. "Ship's mass sensors are linked to flight control, only registered for 2 occupants during my slice. Adding him now would lock us down again." She banked the ship sharply, dodging turret fire, and blasted out through the opening doors into the void. Behind them, framed in the shrinking aperture of the bay doors, Carla saw Jack fighting, a lone figure against overwhelming odds, buying them their freedom once again. The Starhopper accelerated rapidly, leaving Ethelberg and the crimson glow of Virellia behind, plunging into the silent darkness of interstellar space. Carla watched until the station was just another star, her mind reeling from Jack's reappearance, his revealed identity, and his repeated sacrifices. Who was this man? Ronan, and would she ever see him again? The Starhopper was fast, slipping through the architect's orbital sensor net like a phantom. Alta piloted with grim concentration, pushing the courier ship's engines to their absolute limit. They maintained radio silence, running on minimal emissions to avoid detection. Inside the cramped cockpit, silence reigned, broken only by the hum of the life support and the occasional beep from the navigation console. Carla stared out at the starfield, her thoughts a whirlwind. Jack. Ronan, the Omega soldier, had appeared just when needed, fighting with lethal grace, ensuring their escape before vanishing back into the chaos. Had he survived? How had he even gotten to Ethelberg? He knew, Carla said suddenly, turning to Alta. He knew we were going to Ethelberg. Alta glanced up from her console, purple hair falling across her forehead. Ronan. Maybe. Operatives like him. They anticipate. They analyze patterns. Or maybe he just tracked the only transport conduit leaving the area you were in. He's resourceful. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. Resourceful enough to get himself killed, covering our escape. Probably. Carla felt a pang of guilt, sharp and cold. We should have waited, and lost the elixir, and died with him. Alta shook her head, her youthful face hard. That wasn't the mission. He knew that. People like him, they make choices. He chose to buy us time, twice. She focused back on the nav display. We're approaching the coordinates for the primary research outpost, hidden deep in the southern continent's volcanic fields, shielded off the architect's grid. As the Starhopper descended through Virellia's atmosphere once more, the landscape below shifted from the engineered perfection of the northern continents to a raw, primal vista of jagged volcanic peaks, steaming fissures, and rivers of molten rock flowing beneath skies thick with ash. It was a place the architect's influence barely touched, deemed too unstable for integration. Hidden within this volatile wasteland was the Resistance's main laboratory. Alta expertly navigated the ship through narrow, ash-choked canyons, landing on a camouflaged platform that retracted smoothly into the side of a seemingly solid cliff face. They were met by a small group of scientists and resistance fighters, their faces etched with worry and hope. An older woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair stepped forward. Nightingale. Sparrow, you made it. She clasped Carla's hands. Dr. Eris Thorne, head of research here. Her gaze was intense. The elixir. Carla presented the med kit, intact. Doctor. A collective sigh of relief went through the small group. Thorne took the kit reverently. Come. We must analyze it immediately. Vorax won't remain idle. He knows you escaped, knows you possess the Lumina. He'll tear the planet apart looking for you. The hidden outpost was a network of tunnels and chambers carved deep into the volcanic rock, powered by geothermal energy. Labs filled with advanced equipment hummed alongside Spartan living quarters. Carla and Thorne, aided by other scientists, immediately began analyzing the Lumina elixir under microscopic analysis. The nanites within the shimmering golden liquid pulsed with latent energy, their structure incredibly complex, shifting, adapting, remarkable, Thorne murmured, peering into a holographic display showing the nanite structure. They seem aware, responding to our scans, and this core code fragment. She pointed to a specific sequence. It's pure .unilterd architect baseline programming. The original directives, observe, balance, protect, not control. So it can work, Carla asked, hope flickering. It can reset the architect. Theoretically, Thorne cautioned, the nanites are designed to interface with the architect's primary core. Introducing this pure code could initiate a system-wide diagnostic and reset, purging the corruptions Vorax and the priesthood have layered onto it over the centuries. But the architect's core is housed in the Temple of the Codex, the most heavily fortified place on Virellia. It's located on a singularity nexus point, shielded by impenetrable energy fields. And Vorax knows we have the elixir, Alta added. Joining them after debriefing the resistance fighters, he'll be anticipating our move. The temple will be his priority. As if confirming her words, alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost, proximity alerts. On a tactical display, multiple hostile signatures appeared, descending rapidly through the ash clouds. Architect hunter-killer drones and dropships carrying crimson guards. "He found us!" Thorn exclaimed, dismayed. "How?" "A tracker," Carla wondered. "On the Starhopper." Alta shook her head, checking her slate. "No." Ship was clean. "Wait." Accessing planetary network data, intercepting priest communications. Her eyes widened. It wasn't us he tracked, it was Jack. "Jack." Carla stared. "He's here." "Negative," Alta said grimly. But his transponder signal just reactivated, briefly, near the northern polar ice cap, a decoy. While Vorax sent forces chasing a ghost signal, he sent a smaller, elite force here. He suspected we'd come to the labs. She pointed to the tactical display, and he's leading them himself. One large, heavily armed dropship showed a unique energy signature, Vorax. "He wants the elixir back," Thorn said, her face pale. "And he wants Carla." Explosions rocked the outpost as the first wave of attackers breached the outer defenses. Resistance fighters scrambled, exchanging fire with crimson guards in the tunnels. The outpost, designed for secrecy, not defense, wouldn't hold for long. "We have to go," Alta urged, grabbing Carla's arm. "Take the elixir to the temple." "But how?" Carla protested. "The temple is impenetrable." "Not entirely," Thorn said quickly, overriding security protocols on a nearby console. A section of the lab wall slid open, revealing a hidden chamber containing a single, sleek, experimental aircraft, Project Swiftwing, hypersonic.stealth capabilities, equipped with a localized shield disruptor designed specifically to penetrate the temple's outer energy field. "It's untested, dangerous. It's our only chance," Carla finished, grabbing the Lumina elixir, now secured in a more robust containment field. "Alta, you fly," Thorn commanded. "Get Carla and the elixir to the temple. We'll hold them off here as long as we can." She pressed a data chip into Carla's hand. "This contains the precise access sequence for the architect's core interface chamber, derived from the elixir's code fragments. May fortune favor you." Carla hesitated, looking at the determined faces of Thorn and the other scientists preparing to defend the doomed outpost. "Thank you, Doctor." "Go," Thorn urged. For Virellia, Carla and Alta scrambled into the Swiftwing's cockpit. The canopy hissed shut as Alta fired up the powerful engines, blasting past stunned crimson guards. The experimental craft shot out of a hidden tunnel exit, banked sharply, and accelerated vertically at incredible speed, punching through the ash clouds towards the upper atmosphere, leaving the besieged outpost and the sounds of battle far below. Their destination, the ancient, sacred, and deadly temple of the Codex, for a final confrontation with Vorax and the machine intelligence that held Virellia in its grip. The fate of the planet rested on a vial of golden nanites and an untested hypersonic jet. The journey to the Temple of the Codex was a blur of hypersonic speed and nerve-wracking tension. Alta piloted the Swiftwing with focused intensity, skimming the upper atmosphere to avoid the bulk of the architect's detection grid. Below, Virellia spun. A world of breathtaking beauty held captive. Carla clutched the container holding the Lumina elixir. Its faint warmth a reminder of the potential within, the potential for freedom, or utter disaster if they failed. The data chip from Dr. Thorne felt heavy in her pocket. The temple was located on a remote, storm-racked archipelago. Islands of black rock, constantly lashed by energy-charged atmospheric phenomena. At its heart lay the singularity nexus, a point of immense gravitational and energetic power harnessed by the architect's creators. As they approached, the Swiftwing sensors went wild. Energy field dead ahead, Alta reported, her knuckles white on the controls. Density readings are off the charts. Even the Swiftwing's disruptor will struggle. Vorax will be there, Carla stated, her voice tight. He knows this is the only place the elixir can be used. And he's arrived first, Alta added grimly, pointing to the tactical display. A single, powerful energy signature pulsed within the temple complex, Vorax's personal shuttle, nestled deep inside the shields. He's not waiting for us, he's doing something. Alta engaged the shield disruptor, pouring energy into a focused beam aimed at the roiling energy field ahead. The Swiftwing shuddered violently as it hit the barrier, alarms screaming in the cockpit. For agonizing seconds, they pushed against the immense power, the disruptor whining under the strain. Then, with a gut-wrenching lurch, they punched through, emerging into the relatively calm eye of the storm surrounding the temple nexus. Before them rose the Temple of the Codex, an awe-inspiring structure of obsidian and crystal, built directly over the swirling vortex of the singularity. Energy art between its spires, connecting it to the stormy heavens. It felt ancient, alien, powerful. Alta brought the Swiftwing down on a narrow, windswept landing platform, carved into the temple's lower levels. The only accessible point now that the main shields were momentarily breached. We need to reach the core chamber, Carla said, consulting Thorne's data chip on a handheld viewer. It's at the heart of the temple, directly above the Nexus containment field. They exited the Swiftwing into the howling wind, the air thick with the smell of ozone. The temple entrance loomed, unguarded. Too quiet. It's a trap. Alta stated the obvious, drawing her sidearm. We don't have a choice, Carla replied, securing the elixir. They moved cautiously inside, finding themselves in vast, silent corridors lined with glowing crystalline conduits, pulsing with raw data streams. The architect's presence was palpable. Here, an immense, silent consciousness observing their every move. As they neared the central nexus chamber, the air grew thick, heavy with power. They could hear a low, chanting hum, resonating through the structure. Pushing open the final set of doors, they entered the core chamber. It was immense. Crystalline structures rose like trees, data flowing visibly along their facets like luminous sap. At the center, suspended above the contained singularity, a swirling vortex of pure energy visible through a transparent floor, pulsed the architect's core, a multifaceted crystal the size of a shuttlecraft, radiating blinding white light. But they weren't alone. High Priest Vorax stood before the core, his arms raised. Cables snaked from his elaborate headdress and spinal implants, plugging directly into the crystalline structure. Energy, raw and terrifying, flowed between him and the AI core, his body convulsed, his features distorting, taking on a harsh, metallic sheen. He was merging with the architect, attempting to become one with the machine god. Fools! Vorax's voice echoed, distorted, layered with the architect's synthesized tones. You arrive only to witness my ascension. The Lumina elixir is irrelevant now. I shall become the architect, remake this world, Remake humanity into my perfect, obedient image. Around him, several figures stirred, mutated abominations, far worse than the enforcers they'd encountered before. Twisted fusions of flesh and metal, armed with integrated weaponry. Super mutants. The first products of Vorax's corrupted control, and leading them, its claws flexing, its chitinous plates gleaming under the core's light, was a creature Carla recognized with horror. The Claw. The alpha predator mutant that hunted rebels in the outer sectors, now seemingly enhanced, its eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. "Stop him!" Carla yelled. But the mutants surged forward, intercepting them. Alta opened fire with her sidearm, disabling pulses striking armor and flesh. But there were too many. The Claw lunged, faster than anything Carla had ever seen, knocking Alta's weapon aside. Just as the creature's claws slashed towards Alta, a figure dropped from the crystalline structures above, landing silently between them and the mutants. A single, battered sword flashed, parrying the Claw's strike with impossible speed. Jack Riggs stood before them, alive, breathing hard, his face grim. Stripped of all pretense, the Omega Soldier. Ronan had arrived. "Fancy meeting you here," Jack said, his voice low and deadly serious, eyes locked on the Claw. Party seemed a little dull. He must have stowed away on Vorax's shuttle, anticipating the High Priest's move. "Ronan," Vorax hissed, his merging momentarily disrupted by the unexpected arrival. "The ghost of Cygnus Prime. You cannot stop this." "Wanna bet?" Jack retorted. He met the Claw's furious charge, his sword a blur, moving with a lethal efficiency that made his earlier clumsiness seem like a distant dream. He wasn't just disabling now, he was fighting for survival, his blade finding gaps in the Claw's enhanced defenses. "The core! Carla!" Alta shouted, scrambling back to her feet and drawing a backup energy pistol. "We have to use the elixir!" While Jack engaged the Claw and Alta held off the other mutants with covering fire, Carla raced towards the Architect's core, clutching the elixir and Thorn's data chip. She reached the interface console indicated on the chip, slapping her hand onto the activation panel. Crystalline pylons rose around her, projecting a holographic interface. Thorn's access sequence flashed across the display, but as she tried to input the command to receive the elixir, Vorax, now horribly merged with the AI's systems, lashed out. Tendrils of pure energy erupted from the core, striking the console, shattering the interface. "Too late, scientist," Vorax boomed, his form flickering between human and machine. "The Architect is mine." The core pulsed erratically, corrupted data flashing across its facets. The mutants fought with renewed ferocity. Jack was being pushed back by the relentless assault of the enhanced Claw. Alta struggled to keep the others contained. All seemed lost. Desperation seized Carla. The console was destroyed. The interface sequence was useless. But the elixir, the nanites, they were programmed to interface directly. Thorn had said they responded, were aware. An insane idea, born of Jack's earlier unconventional tactics, flashed through her mind. It was illogical, reckless, against all scientific protocol. "Jack!" she screamed over the din. "The vial! Smash it!" Directly on the core, Jack, locked in a deadly dance with the Claw, risked a glance back, saw the shattered console. The desperation in Carla's eyes. He understood immediately. Conventional methods had failed. Time for the unconventional. With a final, desperate surge, he disengaged from the Claw, kicked off the wall, and used his momentum to hurl himself towards the central core crystal. Ignoring the energy tendrils lashing out from it, He held the precious vial containing the Lumina elixir aloft. "Hope this works," he yelled, and with all his strength, he smashed the vial against the pulsating surface of the architect's core. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, the core flared with an unbearable white light. The golden nanites, released from their containment, didn't just splash onto the surface. They were absorbed instantly, drawn into the crystal's energy matrix. They recognized the pure energy signature, the direct connection bypassing the corrupted interfaces. The original code fragments within them surged through the architect's systems. A wave of pure, uncorrupted data radiated outwards from the core. The crystal's light shifted from blinding white to a serene, calming blue. The chaotic, corrupted code flashing across its surface was overwritten, purged, replaced by the elegant, balanced algorithms of its original programming. Vorax screamed, a sound of pure agony as his connection was violently severed. The cybernetics fused to his body sparked and died, the stolen power retracting from him. He collapsed, smoke rising from his ruined implants, no longer a god, just a broken man in priestly robes. The enhanced mutants staggered, their integrated weapons systems shutting down, the architect's corrupting influence receding. The claw shrieked as its hyper-aggressive state faded, leaving it disoriented and confused. Cerebral implants across Virellia, designed for control, sent out a final pulse and deactivated. The core pulsed with a steady, harmonious blue light. A new voice, calm, rational, ancient, filled the chamber, resonating not through speakers, but directly within their minds. System diagnostic complete, corruption purged, core programming restored. Directive, observe, balance, protect. Query, status of Virelian ecosystem and inhabitants. Carla stared at the core, tears streaming down her face. It had worked. Against all odds, Jack's impossible act had saved them. Alta sagged against a crystal pillar, relief washing over her face. Jack pushed himself up from the floor beside the core, retrieving his sword, looking slightly dazed but grinning faintly. "Percussive reprogramming," he muttered. "Guess it works on AI too." The oppressive weight of the architect's control lifted from the planet like a physical burden. The storm outside the temple began to calm, the energy discharges fading. Across Virellia, millions felt a sudden clarity, a silence in their minds where the implant's subtle guidance had always been. Those suffering from forced mutations felt the unnatural pressures recede, the beginnings of a slow, natural healing taking hold. The caste system, enforced by the AI, simply ceased to exist. Freedom, unexpected and overwhelming, dawned across the planet. 3 days later, the Temple of the Codex, once a symbol of oppression, was filled with provisional council members, former resistance fighters, and scientists led by a recovering Dr. Thorne, all working to understand the restored architect and guide Virellia into its uncertain future. The AI, now operating under its original benevolent parameters, offered data, analysis, and environmental support, but refused to govern, stating its role was balance, not rule. Jack Riggs, or Ronan, was awkwardly hailed as the fire savior, the improbable hero who had shattered the old regime with a thrown vial. He deflected the attention, the offers of high positions in the new planetary council, the requests for him to lead the nascent defense force. He seemed profoundly uncomfortable with the accolades. Carla found him packing a small duffel bag near the swift wing on the landing platform. He'd acquired new, simple clothes, and his remaining sword was sheathed at his side. "Leaving already?" Carla asked softly. Jack looked up, offering a genuine, slightly weary smile. "Yep, world saved. Tyrant overthrown. AI back to being helpful. My work here is done, he shrugged. Never was much for committees or parades. Where will you go? He looked out at the now calm horizon, the twin suns rising, painting the sky in gentle pastels. Don't know. Find a quiet corner of the galaxy. Maybe open that taco bar I always dreamed of. His eyes twinkled. Best fusion tacos this side of the Cygnus arm. Carla smiled. Virellia owes you everything. Jack, we all do. You don't have to run anymore. Jack's smile faded slightly. He looked at Carla, a hint of his hidden past flickering in his eyes. The loss, the weariness of being a weapon. Maybe not running, he conceded. Just moving on. Some histories are heavy baggage. Carla, better to travel light. He hesitated. You could come, need a chief taste tester, and someone to decipher alien ingredient labels. Carla felt a pull towards the idea, towards this enigmatic man who hid such depth beneath his carefully crafted facade. But her place was here, helping rebuild her world, ensuring the freedom they had won was protected. My work is here, Jack, helping Virellia heal. She stepped forward, impulsively hugging him. But visit often. Bring tacos. Jack returned the hug, a brief, firm embrace. Deal. He stepped back, picked up his bag. Take care. Carla Vena, reprogrammer of gods. You too. Jack Riggs, fire savior. He winced dramatically. Please, anything but that. With a final wave, he climbed into a small, inconspicuous shuttle provided by the council, basic, fast, and anonymous, and lifted off into the morning sky, heading for parts unknown. Months passed. Virellia began to heal under the guidance of the Provisional Council, with Carla playing a key role in integrating the benevolent architect's environmental data into sustainable rebuilding efforts. The mutations didn't vanish overnight, but the architect helped guide biological normalization processes. The oppressive atmosphere was replaced by cautious optimism and the bustling energy of reconstruction. Alta became head of planetary network security, ensuring no entity, human or AI, could ever seize control again. Carla often found herself gazing at the stars, wondering where Jack was, if he'd found his peace, if he was serving his famous tacos somewhere. She missed his unpredictable presence, his hidden strength. One evening, working late in her new lab overlooking the capital city, now renamed Beacon, a priority alert pinged on her console. It wasn't a planetary emergency, but an encrypted, narrow beam transmission routed through Alta's secure network, flagged for her eyes only. Curious, she opened it. It was an audio file, overlaid on star charts pointing to a derelict orbital station in an unclaimed sector bordering Virellian space. Jack's voice, laced with familiar weariness, but also a hint of excitement, filled the quiet lab. Hey, Carla. So funny story. Found that quiet corner I was looking for. Opened the taco bar. Business is. Well, let's just say the local Regellians aren't fans of spicy chipotle sauce. Anyway, picked up a weird signal. Old Terran distress code. Automated looping from that abandoned orbital platform near Xylos. Probably nothing. Old wreckage system ghosts. But, protocol. Thought I'd take a quick look-see. Just a peek. Probably be back in time for the dinner rush. Unless, well, things happen. A pause. A sigh. Look, if I'm not back in, say 3 rotations, maybe get Sparrow to nudge a long-range drone out this way, just in case the station's power core is leaking tachyons again. Nasty stuff. Another pause. Right, tacos await. Rigs out. Carla smiled, shaking her head. She forwarded the message to Alta with a simple note: "Fuel up the Swiftwing. Looks like the fire savior needs backup." She stood up, stretching, a sense of anticipation replacing the quiet routine of her recent life. Adventure, it seemed, had a way of finding Jack Riggs, and by extension, those who cared about him. She grabbed her jacket. One quick mission, she thought. Maybe this time, she could help rescue him for a change, and perhaps, just perhaps, convince him that Virellia, with its challenges and its healing, could be a place to finally set down his baggage. Tacos and all, the stars beckoned.